Holy smokes. It's time for an Equity.Guru investor roundtable. And today it is all about cannabis. Boy, it seems like a while since we've talked about cannabis. Joseph Morton is down here with me in the basement, which makes sense, rolling one. Did an exquisite write-up, which you can read alongside this investor roundtable. Upstairs is Chris Perry in the penthouse, where he should be, and Vishal, the chart attack man, is up there as well, living large. Yes, cannabis, Canadian cannabis. I won't give you all the symbol names of some of the companies that we're going to cover during this little process, but we'll start with Chris Perry, who knows a thing or two or three or four about the sector.
Yeah, well, I kind of cut my teeth on this sector back in the day, in 2013, 2014. I believe I was the first person to write about cannabis on the public markets in Canada when I saw a dormant mining company putting out a press release explaining that they were looking for opportunities in the, quote, wellness, science, medicine, recreation, mining, and technology sectors. I couldn't figure out what the hell that would mean. And then I realized that they were based out of a mine in Flin Flon, Manitoba, where the government used to try and grow weed in disused mines. 1 + 1 = 2, and I announced that cannabis was in play on the stock markets. Since then, I believe I've set in place something both horrible and wonderful. The laws have changed, the products have come out. We can now, as adults, go to a store and buy beverages and suppositories and vape cartridges and all sorts of things that will give you a weed high and bring all the supposed benefits that you're not allowed to talk about. We've raised billions of dollars in capital financing and then spent billions of dollars frittering that away into what could have been done very much less expensively and more efficiently had it all just not had the public markets to do with. So here we are. Now we've got a bunch of companies that have blown through a bunch of cash, that have had massive valuations and then dropped back to lesser valuations. On social media, we see tens of thousands of well-meaning enthusiasts who will compel you to buy because it couldn't possibly get any lower than this. And they've been saying that for the last 2 years as it has got continually lower regardless of their enthusiasm. So my take on the cannabis sector is, well, I've actually prepared a list on the wall behind me of all the cannabis companies I'm presently invested in. See, very substantial list. These are all the Canadian weed companies that impress me as being the best opportunity to double my money. That's not to say there aren't good Canadian companies in the cannabis space. There are plenty, but the vast majority of them have heart attack monitor stock charts or ski slope stock charts. And don't really look like they've got any real means of turning it around and going held back upwards anytime soon. The reason for that are many. One, a lot of them are in hideous debt. Two, the market has really had the guts ripped out of it. People just don't believe like they used to. Three, everyone's already lost their money and gone on to other things, crypto and the likes. And four, the law, and this is the most important one, the laws in Canada continue to stop the sector from really getting any sort of real foothold over the black market. I don't know about you guys, but I've been to several get-togethers over the last few years, not dozens of get-togethers because of COVID, but several. And people who used to bring bottles of wine to a party will now bring cannabis products. And I see that as being a very respectable evolution because I hate a hangover. I'm suffering one right now. I don't mind a weed hangover in any way the same way. But as a personal anecdote, I barely spend any money on weed products anymore because the mushroom products are coming. And I find them to be even more agreeable. And I'm sure that once we get to the science of both, we're just going to be able to pop a pill and get the benefits that we're looking for, be they recreational or medical. But we're not there yet. We're still, you have to count how many bottles of beverages you're buying from the dispensary so you don't go over some arbitrary limit that the government has set. When you go to their websites, you've still got to prove that you're over the age of 18. Like, it's ridiculous hand-wringing bullshit that the nanny state has imposed on us. They could be raising billions of dollars in taxes like they are in the US, and they're not. The US cannabis scene is a bit different, but even though people are cheerleading that, that itself is incomplete. Banking is still a problem. Rules change from state to state. And until it's federally legal and there's an overarching framework, which will take months and years, that industry isn't going to go up any stronger than the Canadian industry is, in my opinion.
We're going to be taking a look at 5 different companies in particular that Joseph wrote up, and then we'll check out the charts with Vishal here in a second. Tetra Bio-Pharma, which is TBP, that's Tango Boy Pretzel. That's the official, those are official Army.
Tango Boy Pretzel?
Yeah. On the Toronto Exchange. Heritage Cannabis, which is CANN, CAN with an extra N. HITI, dude. HITI is HITI on the Venture Exchange. NLV, which is New Leaf Ventures, and Vivo Cannabis on the TSX, which, fondly enough, is Vivo, VIVO. All right, Joseph, what did you discover in your research while putting together this fine article?
All right. Well, I will start from the more or less the back part of the article and move my way forward. The reason I chose New Leaf and Vivo is because, to be completely honest, I think they're emblematic of the way this sector is going. I had a hard time telling these companies apart, except for the tickers. They have the same products, and they do the same things. I mean, they're representative of a lot of small companies, each doing the same things, producing the same types of products, putting them on the same shelves, and nobody knows who or what these companies or their products are. And I would say that is probably about 80 or 85% of what you can expect from cannabis nowadays. I mean, this might be something we can lay at the feet of Health Canada's no advertising curse, but companies like High Tide, who we'll get to later, have still managed to get their name out there despite doing the exact same thing. Why can't these smaller guys? Again, I think it comes down to visibility.
I was going to say, it does seem like there's 8 or 10 you can buy based on what you're looking for in terms of percentages and flavor. Let's say if I'm doing edibles, chocolate or gummy, blah, 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 I'm looking more at the THC and the CBD percentages and maybe the flavor. I don't give a crap who's manufacturing it because I'm just looking for specific quantities of things, right?
Well, the THC and CBD percentages are they're federally mandated. There are limits that you can go to.
Yeah.
I don't know. I might flip it over and choose one that has 3 grams of THC and 1 gram of CBD. But you could flip over 3 or 4 packages in a dispensary, and you get more or less the same thing.
Right.
Just a matter of, I don't know, is it flavored differently? Are the gummies versus chocolates? Do the gummies come in pineapple berry? I don't know.
Right. But do you care who's making it? Probably not, unless you come across a particular.
Not unless you're an enthusiast, right? Like if you're a dead set enthusiast, then by all means go out there and start sniffing terpenes and whatnot. But for the vast majority of us, do you want to get high? Yes. Not do you want to get high with purple shishkaberry, Afghan refugee haze skunk? Like I don't care. When you get to a point where the guy behind the dispensary desk can say, this one will make your back feel better, by all means. But they're not allowed to say that because the government is like, no, it'll encourage you to use it.
Yeah.
Well, no shit, Sherlock. That's the point.
Joseph, was there anything on Heritage or Tetra Bio that you needed to point out here?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the reason I chose Heritage is because, I don't know if you know about this, but I'm lazy and they're a former client. So I chose them because I've written quite a bit about them. So I know the company fairly well.
Yeah.
It's like, I know there was a time when, I mean, their most recent deal is a commercial agreement with Canopy Growth, which is, would have been a great cause for celebration for Heritage bag holders back in the day. But now it's like, yeah, okay, well, cozy up to that company, sure. I mean, it's like 2 dead animals hanging out in the park. I mean, with Heritage and High Tide, they're both a distribution site and stage of their life cycle. High Tide builds more brick and mortar stores and gets more brand recognition that way. Heritage you buy mostly online through a dispensary. Nobody knows who they are. Heritage is at 8.5 cents and High Tide is almost $9. I mean, and comparatively financially, they're both in decent shape. Heritage is growing and High Tide is probably the fastest growing cannabis company in Canada. But Heritage might be a better bet because of the relative price action if only folks knew who they were.
Right. And Tetra Bio sounds like it. Tetra Bio-Pharmaceutical or pharma sounds like a different angle to this. Like they might be playing
Which is
around with.
precisely why I chose it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I chose it because they're the medical research angle for cannabis. They're running into a lot of the same problems as the other company. I mean, they're seeking out orphan drug designation for their quick sleep product, which, is for regional pain syndrome. And their latest news shows that it's probable they were going to get it. But I mean, like at their latest at the market offering, nobody came to their party. Nobody showed up. There's no price move.
Well, that's a perfect segue to Chartman. Michelle, what's happening?
So I have a few marijuana charts here that we can go through, but let's look at a couple of ones that Joseph here talked about. So here's Tetra Bio being in a downtrend, but we had a pop here yesterday, 17% pop. You're going to see a lot of these type of pops in these marijuana charts because we've seen a bit of a jump, and now it's about if there's going to be any momentum, or were these just people maybe taking profit or closing their shorts or something. I don't know. But we will have to watch, wait and see. But this is why I like, resistance levels, or basically a fancy way of saying price ceilings. And why I want to see that break, right? A simple way to do that is just to draw a trend line. And, once that's broken, that trend is over. So right now, for example, with the Tetra Bio, I'm not saying this is a new uptrend, even though we've had a 17% gain day. But I'm just watching a few of these marijuana charts here, or cannabis charts, sorry. And I think more of the action is going to be on the US side, but I'll get to that in just a bit here because I have some positive news, I guess. Heritage Cannabis, I mean, take a look at that, right? So that had actually a breakout on the 12th of November. I had a little gap up as well on the 15th. No momentum though, but just technically, we are basically in a new, perhaps bullish uptrend. If I do draw a trend line here, getting all these lower highs here, basically, you can sort of see the trend has shifted and we're above my moving averages, which is a good sign. And just once again, I mean, just because we keep seeing this pattern everywhere, that cup and handle again there in Heritage Cannabis. High Tide, as Joseph just mentioned, this is one that's actually maybe a bit more of a hotter stock here on the Canadian side, and it is trading at $8.80. Did hit the $10 level this week, and I think that's the resistance zone that we are going to watch going forward. But once again, we've had this breakout out of what I like to call a wedge pattern, where you can see price basically bounce off of as support and resistance, and finally we got that break on the 11th. Had a bit of a move up to the $10 level, and if I move my resistance zone back here, you can sort of see how important this area has been. So that's the key, but basically what bulls want to see is when we do come back to retest this trend line, hopefully there will be some buyers who missed out on this move, but want to get on the next momentum move, and you'll see something like that. But again, I'll clarify that in just a minute, because I think some of these larger company charts are the ones that you maybe want to keep an eye out on to determine whether interest and momentum is coming back to the cannabis space. And then New Leaf, I mean, you can't really say much. It's pretty much hit all-time lows in October, end of October. And we've just been ranging around here under 25 cents. But, if there is a bottom picker play, perhaps this is the one. New Leaf is the one. But again, you might need some sort of catalyst or good news to get this one popping. And I would basically say you want to see a breakout above 25 cents there. And then Vivo, maybe the same sort of setup. It's thinly traded. You can see the candles aren't very, they're not too nice looking here because the volume's not the greatest, but a bit of a cup and handle here. And they did post actually earnings just a few days ago. And as you can see here, it was a net loss of 6.2 million, I believe here, sort of reduced to 1.1. So, I mean, it's not, obviously a lot of these guys aren't doing too well on that cash side there. But good news. I would maybe look at the US side. I think that's maybe where the momentum is going to be. This week we heard about, it's always about the government, right? That we were promised some regulate what do you call it? There's going to be a government bill passed back in March or April, and even I think it was Chuck Schumer who was going to be behind it, but obviously other issues came along, and this time it's the Republicans. So a lot of people were talking about this bill, the U.S. States Reform Act, which came out on Monday, or well, the discussion came out on Monday, and a lot of people were hoping that would give some momentum. But as you can see here, U.S. marijuana stocks give up gains after the reform bill was announced. So I would still say, the U.S. side is likely where you're probably going to see the action. And I have a few charts here. MSOS, which is the ETF I use for the U.S. side, maybe some hope here. And I know a few people who trade just cannabis stocks, and I was giving them some hope here. But you can see the downtrend. It's definitely over, in my opinion. But now it's the next few days here to see if we can actually hold above this $29 zone, to see if this actually creates another momentum, and we're now in a new uptrend, doing higher lows and higher highs rather than lower highs and lower lows. Or do we just break down because there's no interest in cannabis? Everyone's going into, say, crypto and tech and other stuff, maybe gold, and we just continue to make lower lows on MSOS. And a few more charts here, because these ones are looking really interesting. Tilray I have, which I like this type of pattern. I mean, if I was just, if I'm just purely a technical guy, technical trader, these are the type of patterns I would be buying all the time, because this is what we call a double bottom. Sort of looks like a W here. And you can sort of see that, we've had a downtrend, and maybe there's hope here of a new uptrend starting. So I like something like Tilray. Verano's another one that had a really, really long downtrend, and it looks like now we found a bottom, created a bit of a bouncing pattern, and now it's, again, does money now jump in to ride the second momentum higher? We're going to have to wait and see. And then I also have here weed, or canopy growth, which again is looking a bit interesting. I've drawn this trend line, a resistance zone there, but you can also draw one, I guess, just right down there below or above my moving averages. Basically, tomorrow's going to be a big day for a lot of these cannabis stocks. If we hold this level and see buyers, then there is a chance that, okay, there is a new uptrend. And I guess the final hope I would give to people who are looking into cannabis, personally, I would be, if I was going to invest, I would be looking at companies that grow, marijuana. I wouldn't really be looking at some of these guys that sell, the drinks or the pills and all that kind of stuff. If you guys read my agriculture roundup, Village Farms, I really like them, not just because the agriculture part, but because they can grow the marijuana as well. So I would be looking at those type of plays. And then, secondly, in this crazy market, I guess, where everything looks overvalued, right? You have cannabis looking overvalued, bonds, technology. If you're looking for bargains, I would still argue commodities are cheap, but I mean, I don't think you get anything cheaper than cannabis right now. So maybe there's that if you want to look for some bargains, and you think, say, U.S. regulations will be dealt with in the upcoming months or years. Maybe this is a spot to I guess, and I'm saying, a bit of hope, where maybe you can catch some of these bottoms in some of these plays here.
That's a good transition again, because when you say bottom feeders or pick it up at the low, does that mean Chris Perry would even contemplate it, adding to his wall of nothingness?
Nope. I would suggest that if people look at charts, that they look at the 3-year chart. Let's say on Tilray. If you want to bring the 3-year on Tilray up and tell me this is the moment, I'll say you're an idiot. Because that 3-year chart goes from $112 down to below 15, and its low was, I guess it got down to about 5 there at one point. But you can't look at that chart and tell me that the rise is imminent. It's just not going to happen. If you look at the CGC, Canopy Growth Corp, 3-year chart, you're looking at the same stuff. This sector has had its day. Now, that's not to say people won't consume cannabis. They will. But it's commoditized right now, right? No one's rising their prices. No one's getting results from streamlining their process. Nobody's got dispensaries on a string when they're competing against 6 other dispensaries in any major metropolitan area. Like, it just isn't that good a deal. I'd rather be buying booze retail stores than cannabis retail stores. Mushrooms are coming, and they're going to eat into the exact market that's been established here, a market that has not been able to be profitable yet. So I don't understand how this industry works. I think if you go look at companies like PILL that have IP over a specific vertical, maybe there's money to be had there from licensing that out to others. If you look at Oxley, which I think has picked up some cheap properties by virtue of the people it was doing business with dying in a fire, maybe. But the guys that are doing this from a medical perspective, they're not cannabis companies. They're pharmaceutical companies. The guys that are growing weed, they're not cannabis companies. They're agriculture companies, right? The guys that are selling it in department stores are not cannabis companies. They're retail companies. The cannabis industry is not an industry. It's a factor in a bunch of other industries, and it is not a net plus. You don't suddenly make money in retail because you've got cannabis as a product any more than you do selling skinny girl fucking rosé. Like, to me, the opportunities came and went, right? We could have made this a nice, respectable, adult-focused industry that is responsibly marketed and that grew within responsible rules and not overreach from bureaucrats. It just hasn't been that. Right. And it's not being that in the US, and it's not being that in Germany, and it's not being anywhere else. Companies like Aurora that a couple of years ago were like worth multiple billions of dollars, all of their promises failed to come true. I took so much shit from people saying Canopy Growth Corp is a bad deal, Aurora is a bad deal. Well, look at the 3-year share charts and tell me who your daddy is now. Like, this business is bullshit. The fact that it exists is the only reason people are still in it. If it was starting from scratch, knowing what we know, very few people would have sunk their millions into this business. Now, that's not to say it can't be good, but it's got to be roped in with other businesses or reasons to differentiate. If you've got IP that no one else has, good. If you've got a brand name that really resonates, good. No one does yet. No one's telling me they're going to the store to get X brand weed. They're going to the store and they're getting whatever weed there is. For me, I'll try something that looks novel and different. I really like the Little Victories beverages, but the marketing rules, the Health Canada rules, say that I can only buy 3 of them and then I can't buy any more. I have to do multiple trips to make sure I've got 1 per night for the week. Like, it's just dumb. It's dumb, it's dumb, it's dumb. Smart people should be able to look at this business and come up with just a few minor law changes to make it really take off. And not take off to 15-year-olds, but to 50-year-olds. We should have old folks' homes should be distributing cannabis products to their live-in patients. There'd be no downside to it other than maybe more snacks being sold in off hours. But, we're not going to do that because we have to treat this like it's a terrible gateway drug. Man, there's just as many people taking Oxy as there ever was. Cannabis could replace it, but not the way it's structured currently. You might be able to find some companies like Village Farms. I know is a well-run cannabis grower. This is a group that, when they came to market, said, we know how to grow vegetables at scale. We think we can do the same with weed, and they were right. Their partners a while ago showed that they weren't. But VFF, you look at the stock chart, there's nothing going to cause this thing to suddenly double in the next 6 weeks. There's just no catalyst coming that really take this and make it the must invest category right now. So those that are underwater who are in it and are hoping that it comes back, cut your losses, man. Get your money back. Find something else to drive those gains, because you're putting your money in trying to reverse the tide, and you don't have enough money to do that.
I would quickly just back Chris's point here on Village Farms. Like a few months ago, they changed their website, and the website used to be very heavy. When you clicked on Village Farms, it was very obviously cannabis oriented, right? About growing cannabis. But the new website, which came out, I think, like I said, just within 2 months, now it's very focused on agriculture. So that's a bit telling.
This industry only grows if it goes away from enthusiasts and goes to people who don't use the product currently, right? Old folks, insurance companies, doctors still aren't prescribing it. There's a lot of growth opportunity there, but it means moving away from dispensaries and moving towards CBD-enriched bread beverages you could buy at 7-Eleven. Like, it doesn't have to be about getting high. There's a lot of good therapeutic reasons to use the product, to include the product, but they're not getting there because the rules don't really allow for it just yet. And the US is no better.
Michelle, you're not spending any money?
I think on this one as well, I'm not. I know there's big fans of cannabis. I've had people try to convince me to buy some of these. Like I said, if I was going to buy any of these, I think something like a Tilray or maybe, like I said, just on a technical basis, though. Some of these
But look at the market cap on Tilray.
What about just a short play where you try to make something, you try to time a.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, I would say this would be like, that's what I mean. It wouldn't necessarily be an investment, but perhaps just a trade for one more momentum pop. But again, the technicals are there. It's just, do we have that catalyst to get that continuation? And if it was just because of this, and now this the Republican bill, the SAFES Act, and that's sort of not really news anymore, then a bit worried, right? So tomorrow, it will be a big day to see if we can hold some of these levels. I know there were people excited. Again, it's a tough sector for me. It's just one of those that I think it's cheap. It looks like on a chart wise, it could be bottoming, and there could be a bit of a move up. I'm not saying we're going to be running rampant and making new record highs, but it could just be like a trade.
It's not cheap until it's cheap, right? Like, if you look at the amount of revenue that's coming into the market cap of some of these companies, it's still absurd. Even with the big dips that have happened, you've got to get back to a place where a company could reasonably be expected to make enough profit that it's worth the share price. And some of these companies, Tilray, still like a multi-billions of dollars worth of company, it doesn't make that much money.
Yeah. $7 billion. Yeah.
Joseph, you gonna try to catch a pop? You going anywhere, Joseph?
Not with cannabis. I'd probably throw your money at Shiba Inu first.
So no one's dropping any do-si-do. Haven't had that happen in a while. It is TBP on the Toronto Exchange. That would be Tetra Bio-Pharma. So a little bit of different angle there. Heritage Cannabis, CANN on the Canadian. HITI, dude. HITI is HITI on the venture. New Leaf Ventures is NLV on the standard. And Vivo, VIVO Cannabis on the TSX. That is, those are some of the folks we're taking a look at. We can't guarantee what we told you is going to happen, but these guys could pretty much have known what they've been talking about for a long time. And,
Hope so.
and we do hold you responsible for taking your own research, making your own research efforts, folks. So please, nothing we say is etched in gold, but do a little homework and see what you think. That's it. The cannabis sector. Holy moly, this might be our fattest roundtable ever. Lots to talk about.
We're going to all go get stoned now.
And then invest, dude. That's it. We'll see you next time on the Equity Guru Investor Roundtable.